On this episode, we discuss the difficulties of keeping old friendships back home alive when you're a long-term expat.
So if you have friends or family who you feel you're slowly losing touch with, you'll find some excellent discussion on this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who spent the last week showing his family around Bangkok and now needs a vacation from his vacation.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 17 years ago, fell in love with being a tour guide for visiting family and friends, and never left.
Well, we want to say a quick thank you to one of our patrons, a guy by the name of Ty Stinnett, who supports us at the show shout-out level. Stick around after we're done talking about how, or even if, we keep relationships with friends and family back home alive to hear why Ty might actually be 2 or even 4 different people.
Weird. You can learn more about becoming a patron on our website. And of course, one of the cool things our patrons like Ty get is an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we talk about all kinds of stuff. We just finished recording this week's bonus show, and we chatted about the ups and downs of having your family interrupt your well-planned life for a chaotic vacation in Bangkok, as well as a few stories and tips on how to make the best of being a tour guide for family and friends here in the land of smiles.
All right, so on this episode, we want to get into a topic that comes up every year during the holiday season, and that is the relationships that you maintain with friends and family back home after years overseas as an expat. As many of us know, 1 year as an expat can turn into 3, can turn into 20, and the relationships that were once thicker than blood tend to fade as messages become less seldom, commonalities become less common, and close relatives become distant relatives. So we got to wondering, just how much energy should you as an expat put into keeping old relationships with friends and family alive? I don't know. I think there's a lot to talk about here. Ed, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of glad we're going to cover this topic, although I got to admit, for me, it hits kind of close to home because one of my biggest, I don't know if I would call it a regret, I would say one of my biggest sources of recurring guilt is that I do not do as good a job as I should keeping in touch with enough people, including my family. And I know one issue we want to talk about is how, in a way, being so far away means you have to pick and choose. Like, you can't keep in touch with everyone you kept in touch with as if you were living at home. So it's
right.
like being this far away just means you have to pick and choose. It's almost like you're deciding who to invite to your wedding. It's like you can't have 500 people. You can't have 500 people at your wedding. You got to make some. Some people are going to make the cut. Some people are not going to make the cut. But my problem is actually not even that problem. My problem is people who definitely have made the cut, like my mom, like my sisters, like my best friends.
Yeah, I hope they make the cut.
Yeah, these are people who I clearly should be keeping in close contact with, like at least on a weekly basis, if not monthly. Yet I still find myself getting sucked into my life in Thailand, and I pop my head up and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't sent a message to my mom in 2 months. Like it's like I feel really guilty about it. I genuinely do. When I go home, I'm not joking. The first thing I do when I see my family and my good friends is I apologize. Like, for real. I'm not even joking.
You have little speeches prepared, like a little card you hand out to them. Just it's the same every year.
Yeah, I'm not joking.
Let me begin by issuing an apology.
Seriously, it's that is literally not far from the truth. Because you're right, and it is almost every year where my buddies are like, "Dude, last year you said you were gonna call us, you were gonna do this," and I'm like, "I wanted to, I meant to," or I'll be good for like a couple months. I'll do it for a couple months, and then I just get sucked into my local life. Like I find it difficult. It's almost like I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like it's a mental struggle to keep track of 2 different worlds at the same time. It's like I've got this world here of family, and not family, but my wife, whatever. But I've got friends and work, and a complex set of relationships here, which is hard to keep on top of what's going on, and then this world that's really far away, which I know is real but feels imaginary. You know, it's like the real world of my family and friends back home. That's like on the other side of the world, and it's hard for me to keep track of what's going on over there.
I totally get where you're coming from, but I don't think you should get too down on yourself unless you're ignoring messages from your friends. Because, I mean, maintaining a relationship like one that is on the other side of the world, like you said, like it's work, and it needs work from both sides. So, like, I have in my notes here, I was going to talk about it later, but I'll talk about it now. Like, a lot of listeners to the show who've been listening for a while know that I came over here with my buddy Mark. And we had been friends since we were 14 years old. We were roommates all through college, like just as tight as brothers. And he's really bad at keeping in touch. I'm super good at keeping in touch because I'm always online. I'm online every day, all day. So I'm kind of nerdy that way. But he's really bad at keeping in touch. And after a while, I just kind of got tired of sending him emails and not getting a response back for 4 months or 6 months. You know, I was putting in my work for my end of the relationship, and he wasn't doing it for his end. So if people are sending you emails and you're ignoring them, I think maybe you can feel guilty. But if you're not getting emails from anyone, then it's sort of like neither side is working. So I don't think there's a lot to feel guilty about there.
I'm going to have to confess, I pretty much am that guy.
This is going to be an interesting conversation. You're my Thai Mark.
I wish it wasn't true. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I told you I wasn't joking. Like I'm literally ashamed at how bad I've been. Now let me clarify. I'm not saying I ignore all emails from home, but just over the years, I've just learned that I'm just not very good. Like I don't prioritize. Like, you know, I'm working on let's say I've got job related stuff going on, and I've got a friend here, like I'm supposed to meet you out somewhere, and I've got messages, and then bing, I got a message from like a buddy back home, like, hey, how's it going? And it's like, it's just not a priority for me because I got to get in touch with you to figure out where we're going to meet, and I got to respond to this student's email, and I've got all this current stuff, and it's not like I don't want to respond to this buddy back home, but it gets lost in the shuffle. Like it's not intentional, and then I'll see it 2 weeks later, and I'll be like, oh damn it, you know. Now it does go up and down because I do struggle with it, and then I feel guilty about it, and so I do go through phases where I discipline myself and answer all emails within 24 hours, and I go through phases, but I got to admit it's a struggle for me. Like I'm just, unlike you, I'm just not naturally good at it.
Well, I mean, everyone has a limited bandwidth, right? Like you're right, it's busy over here, and it's often how many seconds there are in the day. You can't respond to everything, but I think it is also because, like you said, it's almost like another world. It's like a dream over there. It's like something you imagine. Because the way I think of it is that the life that I have in Bangkok and the life that my really close friends back in Canada have, it's like that scene in Back to the Future Part 2 where they go back and Biff steals the Gray's Sports Almanac, and it like splits the movie into two different timelines. Like the moment I got on the plane and left for Bangkok, our lives split.
That's right.
We've been sort of on these diverging timelines ever since. And to be honest, like I don't really give a shit about that other timeline. I know nothing about it.
No,
I don't know what's going on. Maybe vaguely from Facebook or something. But all of the nuance and all of the inside jokes and stuff is completely lost. So even if you really wanted to stay in touch, oftentimes there just isn't much to stay in touch about.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that here's what I have found. What I have found is that with family that you're close to, and then for me, it's close friends from junior high and high school. It's like those relationships got cemented early, and then a lot of my buddies went off to college. I went off to college. Some guys went to work. And we already went through a separation before. Like we actually went through a separation already in the States at home. We went through a separation, and our relationship still stuck together. It's like we could reconnect after 4 years, reconnect after 8 years, even though we've been relatively out of touch. Like I'm in university or I'm in law school, and I've been relatively out of touch. So the odd thing is, I've got friends who I sometimes don't talk to for 5 years, and I go back to the States, I reconnect, and it's no problem whatsoever. Like it's just our relationship was so solid during the early years that it could withstand like a decade without being in touch.
Sure, I've got friends like that too. It's like it's like we went away for the weekend and we're back chatting. But I also have friends back home, and it's like, now we have nothing in common. They've sort of gone off and done their own thing, and maybe it's not that interesting to me, and they're not interested in traveling or Thailand or anything. And it's just it's an unnatural amount of work to just keep the minimum amount of relationship going, And you're sitting there talking with someone, and you're like, wow, we just don't connect anymore. Like, there's no point in trying to force a friendship.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think to me, like that case, I guess is in a way is a little bit sad, but to me that doesn't really present much of an issue because it's just natural. I mean, friendships do, like, you drift closer and you drift far away based on your interests. So to me that doesn't really present much of a problem. To me, my problem is taking the steps to make sure I keep in touch with the people that I should. And it sounds like you're just better at it than I am. And, to be frank, I think when 20 years ago when I got here, or 18 years ago when I got here, I had a little bit of an excuse because that was like pre-Facebook. And obviously we had internet and email, and I did exchange emails. But it was still a little bit harder to keep in touch. But now, damn, like with Facebook, with WhatsApp, like with like FaceTime and Skype, there's just no excuse. It's like technology is just taken away, like any excuse you have for like reaching out to people.
Yeah. And that's the argument I make too. And because like my buddy says, oh, sorry, man, I haven't been in touch. And I'm kind of in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, geez, man, how long does it take to send a quick 2-line email? Hey, really busy. Love you. Miss you. Can't wait to catch up sometime soon.
I'm glad you brought that up. You know the concept of a neologism.
No, I don't know what is.
A neologism is like literally a new word that gets invented, like internet. Like
okay.
Internet is a neologism. Well, sometimes I feel like there should be a word for something, but I can't find it, and I just want to make up a word. And so here's what I think there should be a word for. You get a message from somebody. It could be email or WhatsApp, whatever. You get a message, and it actually really matters to you. And you decide, oh, I want to really put time into this reply. Like, okay. I don't want to blow this off. I don't want to do the quick reply. Like, I've got 20 things to tell this person. Like, this message really matters to me. So you don't respond right away because you actually desire to like make a big effort in the reply. But because of that, it gets lost in the shuffle and you end up like blowing it off or not responding at all. You turn it into like a bigger project than it needs to be, and consequently you like don't do anything.
It's like when you meet, you've met a guy for like 6 or 8 times, but you don't remember his name, and you're like, well, I can't say I don't remember his name now. Like, it's way too late for that, so I just got to fake it.
Well, it's actually okay. It's not really like that. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm
not really. No.
Well, maybe I'm just not doing a good job of explaining it. It's more like
a simple email becomes much more work than it otherwise would be. Like, oh man, now it's got to be really good because I've been putting it off for so long.
That's exactly right. It's like, I don't know, like maybe this is just my weird psychology, but this has happened to me several times. Like, I got to find got to find a concise way of explaining the idea. The idea is you have something you want to do well, and because you want to do it well, you don't do it right away. But because you don't do it right away, it never gets done. And so, like, in a way, like, your desire to do a good job makes it less likely that you do anything at all.
Right. There's a Sisyphean element to this. There's a Pyrrhic element to this. There's got to be a Greek lesson in here somewhere.
Anyway, there should be a word for that. Listeners, if you know a word for that, or if you can come up with the neologism, if you can invent the word for that, I would be greatly indebted to you.
We'll have you on the show as a guest to talk about Thai neologisms.
Yeah. I don't care if it's in Thai. You know how they always say that in different languages there's different words, like, Schadenfreude in German. Like, I wonder, maybe another language has a word for this.
Ooh, that would be interesting to find out. Well, you know what's interesting for me when I think of my friendships here is that I've been here 17 years, you've been here 18 years, and I've got friends in in Bangkok, my second home, that have been as close as any friend was ever in Canada for longer.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like my friends in Canada, I consider like my family, like my main core of my being,
Yes.
friends that make up who I am, that played a big role in the person that I turned into.
And now I've known you longer than those guys.
Right. And it's interesting because I think the reason that those friends back in Canada mean so much to me is because they were my friends during a very important time in my life. You know, first loves, first career, your college, you know, all these things. And those are incredibly formative times in your life. And the experiences you have sort of shape you as a person. That is sort of similar to what it is when you move overseas.
Well, part of it is just, I think junior high and high school, the way the West works, it's like junior high and high school is such a bonding time. It's just like, I think it's your it's your age and the school experience, like in general, the travails of day to day going to school. So your friends from junior high and high school just tend to be the ones that you consider your closest friends.
Right. But then when you move over here and you're here 4 years and 6 years and 8, and you're like, geez, I guess I'm here long term. And then as you get further and further into your time here, certain friends go back home or they fall by the wayside or whatever. But the ones that are left are also products of a very formative, important time in your life. You know, building your new life overseas, learning new things. In my case, like getting married, having a family, stuff like that. So I kind of consider it two sides of the same coin. But
but it's still not the same. Like, you're right. I mean, I had some, especially during the first couple of years in Thailand, it's like I had some very formative experiences, like with friends over here. No doubt about it. But it's still not the same as like your friends from junior high and high school. Like I've got great friends over here. Like, I feel so lucky, and like some of my best friends from back home, again, I've known you longer than I've known them.
Right.
But it's still something about like your buddies at age like 13, 14, 15, 16. There's something about that age that those people you grew up with. When I met you, at least both of us were supposed to be adults.
Yeah, I think we were faking it. Some of us still are.
You know, and it's weird. It's like there's some people, I mean, you're different because you and I are close, but I have friends over here that I've known for 10 years that I'm just really not close to at all. Like, they're really just like pure acquaintances. Like, there's a lot of people like that over here who I met them a long time ago, and we get along fine, but we just never bonded or never clicked or never really connected. And I don't know them any better now than I knew them, 10, 12 years ago.
Right. Well, one thing that I'm kind of guilty of as sort of the proactive keeper and toucher kind of guy, is kind of immature, and I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit it, but I kind of sometimes have tested my friends. So, like I said, I mentioned my friend Mark and maybe a few others, they're real close to me. And there's been a couple of times where at what point do I decide, I ask myself, like, at what point do I decide that my friendship with this person just isn't worth the amount of effort that I'm putting in to keep it going? So you test them and you stop writing them a little for like, I'm not going to reply to this message for 6 months and see if they write back. And sometimes they don't. And to me, that's kind of like, well, like I said earlier, it takes two to tango, right? Like, I'm not going to be the one constantly sending emails one way for years and years and years and getting one reply, like 3 lines every 6 months. So, it's weird when you get to that point where you're like, you know what? This person that was once as close as my brother is now someone I'm not even really interested in keeping in touch with anymore. No. It's kind of a weird bridge to cross. No,
it is definitely weird. I mean, unfortunately, like I said, I might be that guy, the one who's not responding, and I don't have any excuse or defense. Like, I think you're like, off the top of my head, I can't really think of anyone in particular who's like dropped me. Although I know that like some friends of mine are not kind of happy with me. I know some of my family members I could name, which I'm not. I know are not happy with like how bad I am at keeping in touch. But by now they've kind of got used to it. And again, if they're your family, if they're your family members, they can't really drop you. Like, you're kind of stuck with your, you're kind of stuck with your family members. But
your built-in friend network.
Yeah, I mean, it is something that I still work on. I wasn't joking when I said it's a I really am just bad at it, and it's just like I've tried several different times to make an effort to do this, and I just haven't found the right pattern, the right habit to handle it.
Here's why I think maybe you're a bit more of a victim than you think you are, is social media. Because remember what it was like when we first moved here, before Twitter, before Facebook or something like that? Like, you had to work at someone and even say before email, like back in the day, you had to really work at keeping in touch with people, because if you had not contacted someone in 6-8 months and they moved, they were gone. Like, you would never be in touch with them again, probably. You might find them again through friends of friends or something. But now, like on social media, we've all got hundreds of friends, and it's so easy to just sort of let those relationships kind of go idle and get diluted by time, because anytime you want to, you can just reach out and spark things up again, presuming the other person is
That's
receptive.
right. In a way, you're right. That's a very good point. In a way, for example, like Facebook, it even if you haven't talked to the person or communicated with them, you're actually not out of touch. It's like they're right there. You can send a message anytime. That's an interesting point. It
removes any urgency or sense of obligation on your part to really work at something, because anytime you want to, it's like, oh, hey, are you there? And
I like that. In a way, I think that's true, and I think that in my case, I think that does explain some of me not feeling any urgency, because I know I can reach out to them. And what I've noticed is this has happened a couple times. Like, I'm not actually a big Facebook user. I think I've got 100 friends, which is shockingly low by Facebook standards.
Loser. Sorry.
I'm just not that into Facebook. But what I've noticed is I've gotten friend requests from a close friend of mine in the past. Maybe from university or something like that, and I've accepted the friend request, and then we've never communicated.
Right? Yeah. That's interesting, because it's sort of
at first,
okay, we're connected. I don't need to do anything else.
Yeah, at first it bothered me, but then I kind of realized that I don't think there's anything really wrong with that. It's like you said, we can contact each other anytime we want to, and it's so it's kind of it's not always a priority to. There's just too many people to keep in touch with. It's you can't. It's I can't juggle the present and the past. It's the older you get, by definition, the longer your past is. So it's every day you're generating a new past. So it's I have old friends from Bangkok.
Right.
And it's you just can't keep in touch with the present and new people you're meeting, and then everyone in the past. There's just no way to do it. And so I think it's okay to prioritize, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think it's not like triage. It's you're not saying this person is not important. You're really not doing that. It's just not a priority. It's there's just no reason to keep in touch, because you're actually already connected, and anytime something important happens, or anytime something is relevant to that person, you can always reach out to them.
Yeah, I came up with a phrase many years ago, and I was very proud of it at the time. But I said that the sort of prevalence of prostitution in Thailand has, the term I came up with as, it has diluted the currency of sex. And I think that social media and things like Facebook, they have diluted the currency of friendship, let's say, because it used to be this tenuous connection that could break by any number of ways, but now it's almost impossible to break it, because what's his face unfriended me on Facebook? Well, I can contact him on Twitter, I can reach out on LinkedIn, and I got his old email address here. So yeah, I think it's removed some of the urgency out of keeping up these friendships. So it's just really easy to get lazy, and it's also really easy to get back in the game.
Yeah, I really like that insight. I hadn't really thought about it that way before. I think we've got a guy on my faculty who's kind of he's obviously he's an academic, but he's into the social media kind of pros and cons. So he teaches a class in social media, and it is kind of fascinating trying to weigh the pros and cons of social media, because there's clearly some pros to Facebook. I mean, it's just clearly helpful in a whole bunch of different ways, but it's got some serious cons too. Like it's a really different. It really is a genuine change in how you relate to people. It's a pretty complex. I don't think we've really understood like all the ramifications of social media.
No, I read a really interesting article a while ago. I think it was in the New York Times or the Atlantic or something, where it said that the effect that social media is having now on the younger generations is going to be a gold mine for clinical psychologists in the next 10 or 20 years, because there's no one knows how it's going to affect cognitive development, social development, and all these things. So they're already seeing like vast differences in how kids today react and relate to people compared to the previous generation or 2 generations ago.
Agree.
So
I think that is totally true. It's funny because what got me sucked into Facebook was my students at the university, because I needed a way to make announcements to multiple classes at one time, and there are like education based like billboard systems. But my students were already all on Facebook, and I didn't want to learn a new system that was just used for education or university, and so I opened a Facebook account just to use as Ajahn Ed, and then I started using it with my students, and I learned Facebook that way, and I saw the advantages of it, and then I started using it with friends and family, and I opened it like a separate account,
right?
And but so it's definitely for younger people. They're wired into social media like in ways that like I cannot relate to.
Right. We're actually going to talk about that on an upcoming show. We're going to have an expert on sort of technology on and tell us what's going on with the Thai youth and how technology is changing these things. But it's getting into a different area, but it's definitely related to keeping up relationships. So it's difficult, as you move away, and that changes the landscape of how you keep up with these things, and then you add in social media to the mix, and that changes everything again. So it's I don't think there's any one solid answer of like how the best way to stay in touch with your friends back home. Is it worth it? I don't know. Depends on the relationship, depends on the person, depends on how much time you have. But I guess the bottom line for me is I'm glad I have as many options as I do have to keep in touch with people. But I think there also needs to come a time when you're an expat. There needs to come a time when you need to just say, you know what, these 3 people are just not worth it. as kind of sad, as kind of mean as that sounds, but it's sort of like triage almost.
I think you're probably right. I mean, there is got to be some amount of triage for sure. You can't keep in touch with everybody forever. That's true. My right. Piece of advice, which is really advice for myself, is just sometimes a short, quick reply is better than waiting to do a longer reply, because it's just so much more respectful for a person to get a quick response. And it's just my idea in my head that I'm going to write a really good response tomorrow. That is just a foolish way to look at it. And so don't do that. Yeah. So listeners, don't be me. Don't do that. Don't think that way. And it's much better to just make a short, quick reply and then try to maybe make a longer reply later.
I agree, but you don't want to do too many of those. Like after the 15th quick reply, you're like, this guy's an asshole. He obviously doesn't care about sending me any messages.
Well, eventually,
so
right.
there's a limit on that.
Eventually you got to get to the quick reply. And let me just say this before we get into love, loathe, or leave. Let me just say this in case any of my friends or family listen to this show. Let me genuinely apologize to you, because it's not you, it's me. I'm the guilty party.
Well, in case that Mark is listening to the show, who am I kidding? There's no way in hell he's listening to the show. He can't even write me an email. There's no way he's going to listen to my podcast. All right. As Ed said, let's get into some love, loathe, or leave, where one of us surprises the other one with a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we then discuss and decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or hate so much that it makes us want to leave forever. And this week, Ed, I turn things over to you.
All right. So once again, I hope you haven't talked about this one before, but it's worth a whirl. So here's the setting I've got for you. You're in some kind of, let's say, like a fast food type restaurant. You're not in like a proper restaurant with waiters and waitresses. You're in like a fast food restaurant. It's kind of crowded. You finish your meal. You pick up your tray and your stuff, and you go like take it to the proper place. You kind of bus your own table, and you look around and you notice that basically 95% of the Thai people in the restaurant do not bust their table, and they leave their trays and everything just sitting. So in this crowded place, like half the tables just have like abandoned food and stuff on them, because like fast food restaurants rarely have people to properly bus tables.
Ooh, that's a really good one. We haven't done that before. That's a really good one, because this is one of those ones that's like almost a dual one for me. I loathe people that don't pick up their trays, because usually when I'm out with my friends and I stand up and I pick up the tray and no one else does, I say, "Come on, you bastards, like, be a Canadian, be nice to other people, put the thing away, you know." But I loathe when people don't do that. But I also love that so many people don't do it, that if for whatever reason I don't feel like doing it, it's not a big deal.
Well, it does. I think, one of the minor themes of this podcast is the way you and I like to analyze these social dilemmas. We talked about whether you should stand up on the BTS or not, and I think this bussing the table thing is an interesting cross-cultural example, because I at least know from in the States, it's more proper to bus your own table at like a fast food place. Like you just put all the stuff on your tray, carry it up, dump it in the garbage, and set the tray down. Pretty much everyone does that. But I have raised this issue to a Thai friend of mine, very westernized, but a Thai friend, and he said, no, that's not proper, because in Thailand we have more people to do that. Like, in general, Thailand has more labor available and more cheap labor. So he actually made the point that if you bus your own table, you're actually doing someone else's job. Like there's someone who's supposed to clean up those tables, even if you're at McDonald's.
I don't know, man. That sounds like a pretty weak argument to me.
Well, it is.
I don't know anyone that would look at a dirty table and go, "Oh, phew, awesome! I got work to do."
Well, that's true. But in the States, obviously, someone will come by and clean the table if you don't do it. But my point is that it's just generally recognized that that's not their job. And what he's trying to say is that there are people who it actually is their job here to do that, and so there's genuinely no need to do it, and you shouldn't feel guilty about. So this is anyway your second option. Like he's saying, you should not feel guilty about just standing up and walking away. You shouldn't feel guilty about that.
So he's saying, like, over here, there's someone that says, "Okay, time to clean the tables," whereas back home, someone would say, "Oh, these idiots didn't clear their tables. Now I have to do it."
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, he could be right. It does seem, in a little bit, this is like a little bit of a, it's a cross cultural question. As Thai people tend to not tip, or at least tip less than a Westerner would.
Right.
So, we are living in Rome. Should we do as the Romans do?
Well, I think we should come down straight in the middle like I do. I loathe that people don't do it, but I also love that if for whatever reason I can't do it, no one's going to yell at me.
Well, I do. I'm sure there have been times where I haven't taken my tray up. I'm sure I've gotten lazy, but it is actually one of my things that bothers me. And I do, like you, it's funny, we have this in common. It's something we didn't know. If I'm with people, I usually bug them to clean up the table.
Yeah. So I say overall, I say the bottom line on this is I got to come down on loathe, because I think it would just be a nicer place if everyone picked up after themselves.
Agreed. Loathe for sure.
Loathe for show.
Okay, so as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we'd like to say thank you to Ty Stinnett for lending us his support at the show shoutout level. And Greg, what did you find out about Ty?
Well, Ed, as you know, most of us have a public persona and a private persona. But Ty, he takes this to a whole new level. And you see, as I was getting to know him via chat over the course of several weeks, another guy named Chris Stinnett kept popping up into the conversation. Like there wasn't like a thread of emails. It was like a couple of different threads going on. And one guy was named Ty Stinnett and another guy was named Chris Stinnett. So I got really confused. I'm like, who the hell is this Chris guy? Well, as it turns out, Ty is Chris. It's the same guy.
That's weird.
Yeah. Well, what happened was Ty's mother is Ty. That's his Ty spells his name Ty, and his mother is Ty, Thai. And he says that his real name is Chris, But when he was growing up, there were so many Chris's around that his friends just took to calling him Thai Chris, which was eventually just shortened to Thai.
Oh, I get it. Like, because he's Thai. Like, they called him Thai Chris.
Yeah.
I love it.
It'd be like a bunch of, so I go to a school and a bunch of kids start calling me Canadian or Canada.
Right.
I
Hey,
guess.
hey, Canada. Hey, big Canada.
Hey, Canada.
Hey, big C. Hey, big C.
So we finally got it all sorted out. But I do have to wonder what kind of games that plays with your mind, I mean, growing up as two different people. And what if Ty is not even being completely honest with us, Ed? What if he's lying to us? I mean, he says the rest of his family is Ray, Jenny, and Alex. But I don't know. I think it's possible that Ty Chris might also be Ty Ray, Ty Jenny, and Ty Alex.
Ah, I see.
So, see what I mean? So Ty, Chris, Ray, Jenny, and Alex, or any combination thereof. I think that when you or you guys come to Thailand in 2019, as you said you were doing, we need to meet for drinks or dinner. And I got to say, if we meet up, it'll be nice to come around the corner and see 4 people standing there. But to be honest, if we come around the corner and see one dude with 4 name tags on, I think dinner's off.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. That's pretty weird.
Yeah, well, whatever happens, Ty, thank you for your support, man. We really do appreciate it. And Ray, Jenny, and Alex, they are actually coming to Thailand next year, so hopefully we can meet up and get to the bottom of this mixed persona issue.
Okay, before we wrap up, I'd like to give a special thanks to all of our patrons who are listening now. As everyone knows, we don't run ads or have sponsors, so we really, really do appreciate the support we get from our patrons. And if you want to get in touch with us, it's easy. Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We always write back. If you write it, we will answer it.
You can also find us on the Line app, where we post each episode and carry on conversations with our listeners. You can also reach out to me directly on Twitter if you want, where I am BKK Greg. So thanks again for listening, everyone, and we'll see you back here next week.
See ya.
We'll see how things work out. All right. Well, call the doctor. Jesus, I ruined that take.